What happens when a rising political firebrand clashes with the no-nonsense queen of courtroom TV, live, with millions watching? It started with one sentence and ended with a political firestorm that shook the internet. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Not on national television. Not with Judge Judy behind the bench, and certainly not with Representative Jasmine Crockett front and center, defiant, poised, and absolutely unprepared for what was coming. But before we unravel how this courtroom turned into a battlefield, if you're into moments where powerful people get confronted head-on, you're in the right place. Tap that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you won't miss out on newer episodes. At first, it was civil, tense, but measured. Judge Judy asked questions about recent political outbursts. Jasmine answered with sharp precision. But something was off. Judy's tone grew tighter, her questions more pointed. And then came the moment that cracked the whole thing open. A question about a viral protest clip. Judy accused her of grandstanding and screaming for attention. Jasmine shot back. "You've built your career yelling at people on TV. Don't come for me because I refuse to stay silent." The audience gasped, but Judge Judy wasn't rattled. She leaned in, eyes like steel. And then she dropped the hammer. "You're not making change. You're making noise. And frankly, you've become a national disgrace." There was a pause, a long, silent pause. And then everything went off the rails. But that wasn't the whole story. Because what Jasmine did next turned the confrontation from a viral clip into a full-blown media meltdown. The moment those words left Judge Judy's mouth, the room froze. For a split second, Jasmine didn't move. She didn't blink. Just stared stone-faced, trying to process what had just been said to her on live television. A national disgrace? You could almost hear the oxygen leave the room. And then she stood up. Not slowly, not calmly, but with a kind of sharp, deliberate movement that told everyone in that studio this wasn't over. Her chair scraped the floor. She grabbed her folder of notes, tight, like she was choking it, and stepped out from behind her podium. No script, no closing statement. Just one line, thrown like a dagger over her shoulder. "If speaking the truth makes me a disgrace, then you've been disgracing this country for 20 years. And just like that, she stormed out. No exit stage left, no handshakes, no applause, just silence. The cameras kept rolling. Judge Judy didn't move either. She sat still, eyes fixed on the spot where Jasmine had been, jaw tight. She didn't respond, didn't smirk, didn't blink. Just tapped her gavel once, hard. "Session concluded," she said. The show was over. But outside those studio walls, it was just beginning. Within 15 minutes, clips started hitting the internet. Not polished uploads, just phone recordings from audience members, already shared, reshared, and quote tweeted with fire emojis and all caps captions. She really walked out. Judge Judy versus Jasmine Crockett is the wildest thing I've seen on TV in years. Was this even legal? Hashtags started trending before the West Coast even got the feed. But here's the part nobody saw coming. The backlash didn't fall where people expected. Because for every viewer calling Jasmine unprofessional, another was calling her brave. For every headline blasting her exit as a tantrum, there was a video praising her for not taking disrespect from anyone, not even TV royalty. In just a few hours, Jasmine Crockett went from guest to battleground. Political commentators took sides. Talk shows replayed the clip on loop. News anchors debated whether Judge Judy had crossed a line or whether Jasmine had. And then, something unexpected surfaced. One of the producers anonymously leaked behind-the-scenes audio from before the taping, and what it revealed changed everything. The audio was grainy, clearly recorded on someone's phone, maybe hidden in a pocket, but the voices were unmistakable. Judge Judy, Jasmine Crockett, and someone else, likely a senior producer, trying to keep the peace just minutes before the taping began. The leak started circulating on a Reddit thread titled, "This was never meant to air." At first, it was dismissed as fake, but once verified by 2 separate audio engineers and picked up by a few independent journalists, it exploded. What it revealed was not just behind-the-scenes tension, it was a full-on power struggle. "Producer, let's keep it respectful. Both of you represent different audiences. She's not my equal, let's get that straight. She's here because the network wanted ratings, not because she earned this seat." Jasmine, Good to know where we stand. I'll make sure to give them something worth watching then. That line? It was a warning and a promise. The internet lit up. The leaked clip painted a whole new picture. This wasn't just a live blow-up. This was a loaded match, pre-rigged with friction, with two women walking into the ring already swinging. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. No longer was Jasmine just the guest who stormed out. Now people were asking, why was she invited in the first place? Some speculated it was a trap, a ratings stunt, a spectacle designed to provoke a reaction and then spin it as outburst. And that question, was Jasmine set up, became the real headline. Pundits debated it for days. TikTok creators broke down the audio word by word. Twitter threads dissected facial expressions and tone inflections. Even late-night hosts jumped in. Judge Judy said she wasn't her equal, and Jasmine said bet. Laughter, applause, and another million views. But amidst the jokes and chaos, something deeper started brewing. Jasmine Crockett, now in the eye of the storm, went silent. No tweets, no interviews, no appearances. Her social media profiles went dark for 48 hours. And in today's news cycle, that's an eternity. Rumors ran wild. Was she hiding? Was she being silenced? Or was she planning something bigger? Because when Jasmine reemerged, she didn't apologize. She launched something. And what she announced next? No one was prepared for. When Jasmine finally reappeared, it wasn't with a press release. It wasn't with a tearful apology. It was with a video. Just under 3 minutes long. No music, no flashy cuts, no studio lighting. Just her, sitting at a kitchen table, sleeves rolled up, speaking directly to the camera like she was talking to you and only you. Her first words? You saw the clip. You heard the audio. Now let me tell you what they didn't show you. And just like that, she flipped the switch. No longer the guest who stormed out, no longer the trending hashtag. She framed herself as the target of a smear campaign. Someone invited under false pretenses, pushed for a reaction, then vilified for not playing along. But here's where it gets clever. Jasmine didn't just defend herself. She launched a brand new initiative, Tash Unmuted. A platform dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices in media and politics, especially women who refuse to smile, nod, and behave when they're being disrespected on national television. It wasn't subtle. It was calculated. She even released a limited line of red blazers, the exact one she wore in the studio, tagged with the phrase, "Not a disgrace, just not obedient." They sold out in under 6 hours, and with that, the narrative changed. Again, suddenly, she wasn't just reacting, she was leading. Judy, meanwhile, remained silent. No interviews, no statement. Her team issued a vague response about editorial integrity and production confidentiality. But the silence said more than any statement could. Because behind the scenes, there were cracks. Producers were scrambling, advertisers were nervous, and someone, according to inside sources, was furious that the footage had leaked in the first place. Some speculated that Judge Judy herself had threatened to pull the entire episode from re-airing. Others said she was preparing her own rebuttal episode. But here's what really set everything on fire. A second leak. This time, it wasn't just audio, it was video. Uncut, behind-the-scenes footage that showed Jasmine's arrival at the studio, her being escorted past a locked dressing room, being told last minute that her time was cut, and being denied a request to bring in her legal advisor. And more than that, it showed Judy watching Jasmine from behind a curtain before the taping, whispering something to a producer. The audio was faint, but enhanced by viewers online, and it sounded like, "Let her dig her own grave." The internet broke. People didn't just sympathize now, they were angry. It didn't matter whether you agreed with Jasmine's politics or not, viewers felt duped. They felt like they'd watched a setup, not a debate. And just when the backlash seemed to peak, someone unexpected joined the firestorm. The footage had barely made its rounds when something unexpected dropped onto Instagram. No hashtags, no flashy caption, just a single video from someone no one expected to speak up. Rosie O'Donnell. Yes, comedian, actress, former talk show host, known for saying exactly what she means and not giving a demand who doesn't like it. In the clip, Rosie sat on her couch, holding her phone out in selfie mode. Rosie, in the video, "Listen, I've known Judge Judy for years. I respect her. But what I saw in that footage, that wasn't justice. That was ambush." The video cut to black. No outro, no promo, just her words. And suddenly everything shifted, again. Because Rosie wasn't the only one watching. Within hours, more voices followed. Caroline Levitt, normally on the opposite end of the political spectrum from Jasmine, posted a tweet that caught everyone off guard. Disagree with her all day long. But respect is non-negotiable. What happened to Crockett was disgusting. Even Barron Trump's name trended after a viral TikTok edit showed Jasmine walking out of the studio overlaid with a quote from him about never backing down from a fight. It was surreal. Jasmine Crockett had gone from congressional firebrand to culture war lightning rod. But it didn't stop at celebrity support. Behind the scenes, legal gears were turning. A quiet but powerful figure stepped in. Pam Bondi, former Florida Attorney General. Though typically aligned with Judge Judy's base, she reportedly offered legal consultation to Jasmine's team pro bono. Why? Some said she saw a media trap and wanted to prevent precedent. Others said it was personal. But the real twist? A leaked memo from the network's legal department suggested they had pre-approved edits that would have removed the moment Judy called Jasmine a national disgrace before airtime. The memo was clear. That phrasing may incite brand-level liability if the subject chooses to litigate. And yet, it aired, which begged the question, who pushed it through? Was it an executive override? Or was this all part of something bigger? Because as Jasmine gained momentum and Judy stayed silent, rumors started to swirl about a third player, someone no one had mentioned yet, but who had everything to gain. While the internet argued over Jasmine's exit, while Rosie, Caroline, and others took sides, and while Judge Judy's silence deepened, the real story was brewing far from the spotlight. Behind the curtain. Inside Studio C, on the 9th floor of a cold New York office building, sat a man whose name had never been mentioned publicly throughout this entire scandal. Greg Abbott. No, not the governor. This Greg Abbott was a media executive, VP of Development at Dominion Media, the company that owned the rights to Judge Judy's new court series and bankrolled the Jasmine episode. He wasn't a household name. But inside the industry? He was known as the man who could smell virality before it happened. And this wasn't his first gamble. He'd pushed for controversial clash format episodes before, like that one with the Bitcoin influencer and the 82-year-old landlord. That went viral. And the episode where a preacher got sued by his own nephew? Also Greg. But this time, he pushed harder. According to 3 different insiders, it was Abbott who personally greenlit the Jasmine Crockett episode. He allegedly rewrote the segment structure, adjusted the runtime, and, most importantly, overrode legal's recommendation to cut the national disgrace moment. Why? Because he wanted fire. One insider even claimed Greg had said, days before filming, America's bored. I'm going to wake them up with this one. And boy, did he. But here's where things went sideways. Greg didn't count on the backlash turning on him. He expected viral clips, social media buzz, maybe even a spike in views. What he got instead was a full-blown PR crisis. Boycotts, petition campaigns, sponsors pulling ads, and worst of all, Judge Judy, who reportedly felt blindsided and misrepresented, threatened to walk from the show entirely. At first, Greg tried to spin it. He told Variety it was an important cultural moment and exactly the kind of discourse we need in America. No one bought it. Then came the studio staff leaks. One assistant posted anonymously that Greg had told producers, "She's emotional. Just let her flare up. That's good TV." The assistant didn't clarify who he was talking about, but nobody had to guess. The network issued a rushed statement about editorial missteps and internal reviews. But by then, the damage was done. Jasmine had turned the moment into a movement. Judge Judy was threatening legal action. And Greg Abbott? He disappeared from the network's org chart by Monday. Gone. No farewell email, no official statement, just removed. But what came next was something even more unexpected. Because just when the dust started to settle, someone took it all a step further. After weeks of media firestorms, leaked footage, public alliances, and a collapsed production deal, most people assumed Jasmine Crockett would lay low, take the win, ride the wave, and move on quietly. But they forgot who they were dealing with. She wasn't the kind to let a moment define her. She was about to define it herself, on the record. And she didn't do it on a podcast, or an interview, or a social media live stream. She did it from the House floor. On a Thursday morning session that was supposed to be routine, Jasmine Crockett requested time during morning hour, a slot usually reserved for mild pre-scheduled speeches. What she gave instead was a war cry. The chamber wasn't full, but the cameras were on. Crockett from the podium. Some people think silence is strength. Others think outrage is weakness. But what I know is that when a black woman dares to speak, dares to push back, dares to refuse to smile and be silent, she doesn't get called courageous. She gets called a disgrace. The room quieted. No murmurs, no interruptions. She went on. I will not apologize for leaving a room that wanted to use me as a punchline. I will not apologize for defending myself in the face of humiliation disguised as entertainment. And I will not apologize for walking out, because some doors don't deserve to be walked through. Some members clapped, others stared, stunned. But it didn't end there. Jasmine introduced a new resolution, the Dignity in Media Act, which called for a congressional review of how government officials are portrayed in entertainment media and whether any guidelines should exist to prevent deliberate defamation under the guise of editorial license. Was it symbolic? Maybe, but the point wasn't to pass a bill. It was to put her name on the record, not as a reactionary figure, but as a policymaker who refused to let television rewrite her legacy. And just like that, the story pivoted again. News outlets had to change the headline from Jasmine Crockett storms out to Jasmine Crockett takes charge. The replays changed tone. The think pieces came fast. One journalist wrote, "Whatever side you're on, you have to admit, Jasmine didn't just walk out of a studio. She walked into a bigger spotlight and owned it." Even Judge Judy, who had still said nothing publicly, was now facing questions of her own. Whispers in the industry hinted she was considering retirement again. Others said she wanted her own tell-all special. But something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. And just when it felt like this story couldn't twist any further, someone re-entered the scene. Someone who had been quiet, watching, waiting for the right moment to speak up. You may not have heard of him before this, but inside the American legal system, Judge Andrew H. Stones was a name that carried weight. Not flashy, not theatrical, not someone who chased a camera. He was the kind of judge who didn't speak unless it mattered, which is why his sudden appearance on the Verdict Line podcast, the one known for unpacking legal drama with actual courtroom insiders, sent shockwaves across every news cycle. The host didn't even have to ask. 2 minutes in, Judge Stones leaned forward and said, "I watched the full footage, raw, uncut, pre-edited." Silence. He took a breath. What happened to Representative Crockett was not a debate. It was a setup. And I say this as someone who has defended Judge Sheindlin's legal legacy for years. But what I saw was a complete abandonment of judicial decorum in favor of manufactured entertainment. The internet froze, because this wasn't a YouTuber or a political pundit. This was a sitting federal judge calling out another judge by name. He continued, "You don't bring a sitting Congresswoman into a courtroom-style environment, interrupt her, corner her, insult her character, and call it television. That's not media. That's manipulation." Those comments went viral within an hour. Tweets praised Judge Stones as the voice of sanity in a media circus. Even Rosie O'Donnell reposted the quote with 3 simple words, "He gets it." Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Dominion Media scrambled to save face. Rumors swirled that the network's board had demanded an internal audit of how the entire episode came together. Even Judge Judy's own legal team, previously silent, reportedly issued a cease and desist order to block further rebroadcast of the unedited episode. But it was too late. The footage was out. The narrative had shifted. And now, with Judge Stones publicly stating the case had crossed legal and ethical lines, there was talk of something even more serious. Litigation. Not just civil, but federal. Because if a member of Congress was deliberately misrepresented and defamed on a broadcast backed by commercial sponsors, there could be consequences. And Jasmine's team knew it. But while the legal threats loomed and networks played defense, Jasmine made one more move. Something that turned the story into something much bigger than her. One phrase. That's all it took. In the middle of a live stream Q&A hosted weeks after the blow-up, one Jasmine Crockett barely promoted but still drew over 80,000 live viewers, she was asked, offhand, what she took away from the whole thing. She paused, tilted her head, then said, "I learned that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's a verdict." And just like that, a new fire lit. The clip was everywhere by morning. It's a verdict. It showed up on t-shirts, protest signs, tweet threads, even murals in 3 major cities. It wasn't just about Jasmine anymore. It was about being misjudged, about being baited, about standing your ground even when the whole room is waiting for you to explode so they can cut it into a soundbite. And it hit hard. Thousands began using the hashtag verdict culture, sharing their own walkaway stories. Influencers, activists, even quiet users who rarely posted anything. And for once, the internet wasn't divided. They were aligned. Jasmine's team pivoted quickly. She launched a nonprofit verdict fund supporting women in public-facing jobs who face targeted media harassment. Lawyers, journalists, politicians, educators. It wasn't about sides anymore. It was about dignity. And here's the kicker. That quiet little campaign, it raised over $3.5 million in 2 weeks. But it didn't stop there. The cultural momentum forced policy to follow. A bipartisan congressional hearing was suddenly scheduled. Its subject, ethics and consent in political media appearances. And who was invited to testify? Jasmine Crockett. But not alone. Pam Bondi came too. Caroline Leavitt appeared via live statement. Even Judge Andrew H. Stones submitted written remarks, and the line outside that Capitol hearing room wrapped around the building. This wasn't about one courtroom moment anymore. This was about power, control, narratives. And in the middle of it all, the woman they once called a national disgrace stood at the podium in a plain black suit and calmly said, "Let this be the last time someone gets told to be quiet on camera and expected to smile through it." The applause wasn't thunderous. It was respectful, heavy, final, like the gavel had already hit the bench. But even as the movement surged and the hearings wrapped, there was still one final twist, a message, an unexpected one. For 96 days, Judge Judy said nothing, no press conferences, no public apologies, not a single comment on the firestorm that erupted from one sentence she spoke on live TV. People assumed she was done, retired, retreated, wounded. But Judge Judy had built a legacy on one thing, control. So when her silence finally broke, it wasn't in a viral video or a tweet or a podcast. It came in the form of a handwritten letter, signed, sealed, and sent to the office of Representative Jasmine Crockett. Not meant for the public, but leaked anyway. By who? No one knows. But the contents changed everything. Miss Crockett, I have spent my entire life calling things as I see them. And in doing so, I've made enemies, hurt feelings, and sometimes, yes, crossed lines I should not have. You and I do not agree on everything. But after watching how you carried yourself, after watching what you built from a moment meant to break you, I have to say this. You were right to walk out, and I was wrong to try and keep you in that chair. Judith Scheindlin. 4 sentences. No press release, no PR filter, just ink and paper. And the final sentence? Printed in all caps, underlined once. You weren't a disgrace. You were a verdict. Jasmine never confirmed the letter's authenticity. She didn't post about it, didn't frame it, didn't quote it. But just hours after the letter surfaced, something subtle changed. And so what began as a single televised insult became something else entirely. A cultural reckoning, a viral movement, a legacy reset. Judge Judy stepped off the bench. Jasmine Crockett stepped into her power. And the rest of us? We watched history turn on a sentence and remembered that sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. Because in a world built on cameras, edits, and control, sometimes the only real verdict is the one you give yourself. So now, you've seen how one televised sentence became a movement, and how one woman flipped the script that was written against her. But what about you? Would you have stayed in that courtroom or walked out too? Drop your verdict in the comments. Let your voice be heard. And if stories like this make you think twice about power, control, and truth in media, then you're in the right place. Tap that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because sometimes, fiction tells more truth than the headlines ever will.